Hi, good afternoon, attendees. Pleasure to have you here. Welcome to the session on rebooting innovation, the upsurge of disruptive technologies amid COVID-19. Well, we all understand that innovation is driven and, in fact, accelerated during crisis. The last real global crisis, according to me, and it's obvious, was World War II, right? When the most innovation really happened. But it wasn't truly global, was it? Because India was ruled by the British, China was under Japanese control. We didn't see any innovation. We just sent our countrymen to go die in the war. But now, in this current crisis, it is truly global. In fact, the pace of innovation through digital transformation is higher in Asia Pacific than in Europe and the US. In just a few months' time, COVID-19 crisis has brought about years of change in the way companies and sectors in different regions do business. We all know this. We've been seeing it around our home. According to a new McKinsey Global Survey of Executives, their companies have accelerated the digital transformation of their customer, supply chain interactions, and internal operations by 3 to 4 years. And the share of digitally enabled or new digital products has been accelerated by a whopping 7 years. This kind of accelerated digital transformation is something that we've never seen before. And we should be glad and fortunate to be experiencing this in our lifetime. I'm Vishal Reddy, your moderator for this show today. I'm an expert in immersive technologies, technologies that deliver immersion. And what is immersion? It is basically the need to be completely involved in a task. Essential business tasks that are enriched by immersion is doing an action or a series of steps like procedural guidance, seeing or visualizing people, things, or environments like product visualization, getting help and solving a problem, remote assistance. I run Wowsome, founded in 2015, incubated by T-Hub, and now a global company having delivered over 5,000 immersive experiences. Now, following my introduction with great excitement, I introduce you to one of Wowsome's primary technology providers, PTC, the world's largest AR product company. Welcome, Raj Kiran, the India head for IoT and AR at PTC.
Thank you very much, Vishal. Pleasure to be interacting with everybody today. I'm Senior Director for the IoT and AR business in India and South Asia. IoT and AR is that kind of business, right? It's really catching on, and in adversity, like Vishal said, that's where technology is put to the best use. My background has been with the large companies that you all know, the names of Oracle, IBM, HP, Microsoft, etc. I've had different stints with all of these companies, and I was familiar with working with databases, hardware, enterprise software, and so on with these companies. Now it is time to look at what the future holds for us, and the future is now. IoT and AR is happening in the areas that Vishal talked about. AR is absolutely prevalent and used so widely, immersive technology like it's called, and reality has to be augmented with digital data, and that's what AR is about. IoT is about making the world smarter. So these are the two areas that I'm looking forward to engage with everybody in. And I'm involved even with the startup ecosystem. I do a little bit of investor activity as well. So I'm glad to be part of this, and thank you, T-Hub, for this opportunity as well. Over to you, Shesha.
Hi all, my name is Shesha Raghunathan. I'm part of IBM Systems. I'm a senior engineer. I work in the area of hardware design, and I also am an IBM Distinguished Quantum Ambassador. So I also jointly work with IBM Research and Quantum Research in India.
Thanks, Shesha. You're amongst the very few people with these very niche experience with quantum computing. I'm really looking forward to having several arguments with you. We also have Professor Anil Prabhakar from the Electronics Department of IIT Madras. Anil?
Thanks, Vishal. I am a faculty at IIT Madras and have been here for about 20 years now. I have had my prior experience in industry for about 5 years, working for Western Digital. And now these days I work a lot on quantum technologies, quantum science. It is a good convergence of futuristic technologies that we are talking about today in terms of AR, IoT, and quantum. So I look forward to having interesting discussions on how that will pan out in our future.
Yes, Anil, thank you. Me too. I've never had a discussion with a bunch of emerging technologies together, so I'm very, very excited. So as you see, audiences, we have industry experts and an academician giving a perfect balance to this conversation today. As a next step, let me take this opportunity to give a quick introduction about THub. Well, THub, leaving the official definition aside, it is amongst the most prolific startup ecosystems in the country, probably in the world. It needs no further introduction, so I thought it's best to narrate my personal story with THub, and likewise the other participants will as well, which will give you the most sense out of this conversation. Wowsome was founded in 2015, and it was one of the first incubated companies in T-Hubs. It was the first successful incubation in T-Hub Lab 32 program in 2016. In 1 year, 2017, the company raised their first investment round and successfully graduated from that incubation program. So this is my history with T-Hub. While leaving, the company also leveraged on several relationships with international trade organizations that T-Hub holds, and because of which today we are a global company. And I thank T-Hub for providing us the platform in the past and preparing us for to face the world in many sense. And I urge each one of you to explore and exploit the amazing access that T-Hub provides for research and development of your products and services, including intelligence and access for market release as well. That's what T-Hubs mean to me. And Shesha, so what is your story with T-Hub?
So I got to know about T-Hub probably a year and a half back. I did one internal session with T-Hub group a few months back. But before that, I got to know through news articles and such. Based in Hyderabad, there is a lot of dynamism as I see it, and whatever. I haven't physically visited the place, but I've seen some videos of it. Looks like it's a nice environment for startup ecosystem and for innovation in general. The platform seems nice. Hopefully, I want to see more deep tech kind of innovation coming through as well in this platform. Hope to see more nanotechnology, deep tech in that space as well coming through. And my best wishes to T-Hub and the team for more of these activity and bringing folks like us on this platform talking about these technology. Hopefully, we'll see more ideas and discussions that will lead to more interesting discussions ahead. Thank you.
Certainly, Shesha. So when my company was selected in 2015, it was deep tech and it was emerging, right? And today they're working with you in quantum computing. So I'm sure they have a lookout for deep tech companies, and that's really amazing and encouraging in a place like Hyderabad. The campus is beautiful, amongst the best places to work because it's within a university, IIIT. So typically, there's lots of space, lots of trees around the building, and giving you that very cozy environment. I love my time in T-Hub. Thanks for narrating that. Anil, what is your story with T-Hub?
Well, I haven't actually officially interacted with T-Hub except for having had conversations about how do we bring on training platforms around the quantum environment to T-Hub. Okay. So that was a conversation I was actually having with the Telangana government before the pandemic. So we are hopeful that in a few months or so, we should be able to restart some of those conversations. And with Shesha also on board, I think that might be a good initiative to look up.
Absolutely. And both of you are already working together. Yeah. I wish you the best for that conversation, Anil. So last, Raj, I guess you've heard about T-Hub through this, but what is your opinion?
Yeah, I've heard about T-Hub very recently, of course, but I know of the importance of similar such aggregator, platforms of networks, right? That brings together different types of companies in different areas of technology. IoT, for example, the field that I'm in is so It is so necessary to have different types of companies come together. It's a coming together of various different technologies, hardware, software, services, AI, ML, sensors, IT, all of that together. So a platform like T-Hubs is extremely vital to fostering technology. And I think that's extremely important to make sure that the right ecosystem, the right partners come together, like-minded individuals starting off companies, seeking funding, all of that comes together, and therefore it's important. I've been associated with a couple of them in the past. I've seen the work that NASCOM has done as well, but I think this is vital. So all the best, T-Hub, in future as well, and I look forward to further associating with you.
Thanks for it, Raj. Yes, you're right. When I entered T-Hub, I was bootstrapping the company, and it was my first technology business. The ecosystem provided everything I needed. Anyway, I think we've been quite polite to our host and given them enough exposure. Let's get into the main conversation. Right, it was really enjoyable doing that. Allow me to set the intention for the main panel discussion, for which all of you are here for. On the panel, as you can see, we have experts from the emerging fields of quantum computing, IoT, and immersive technologies, which is AR, VR, MR, and AI. Well, quantum computing is surely an emerging field, but in relation, IoT and AR are more established and proven technologies. But nevertheless, for the sake of this conversation, let's put all of them into the same bucket. To begin with, we will define the technologies, discuss the current insights on where the market is, both global and India, following which we'll discuss the challenges and opportunities that these sectors, these fields present. Next, we'll spend some time describing our idealistic vision for the adoption of these technologies. Each of us have our ideal vision, our dream vision. We'll have some fun sharing that. Obviously, the vision of the future, of course. Next, we'll see how these technologies transform our lives for human beings as individuals, how they make our world a better place, and how they greatly improve the quality of our lives. Towards the end of the panel discussion, we would like to give our expert advice, our opinions to various groups of attendees, namely the investors, the entrepreneurs, businesses, all of whom are essential groups of this ecosystem that are essential and required for adoption of any emerging technology. So that will be the flow of the panel discussion. And let's begin. So initiating the panel discussion, I think it's fair to begin with quantum computing, the most current and emerging technology. I have done a bit of reading, but really I could, Shesha, you could consider me as a novice in the field. I understand very little about quantum computing, and I'm looking forward to learning about it and also seeing how I can apply and collaborate with quantum computing in my field, which is immersive tech. So Shesha, from a very basic level, to our audiences, what is quantum computing and what are its applications?
So quantum computing is a fundamentally different module of compute. The way we do our compute these days in hardware, we do it based on the bits, zeros and ones. And at that fundamental level, it is different. It's fundamentally probabilistic in that you can be in a combination of 0 and 1 in a probabilistic sense. It works on top of the basic principles or postulates of quantum mechanics. So it runs on top of quantum principles, and the computation is done using the quantum principles. There are certain unique quantum phenomena like quantum entanglement and superposition, which are not seen in the regular classical world. And the reason for the interest in quantum computing as a technology is leveraging on those fundamental quantum principles that gives us that unique exponential state space that is there. So the question then is, what can it do well? And does it do everything well? Is it a panacea? It certainly is not. It can do some problems well. There are some proven problems that it has shown better performance compared to classical. Let's say the factoring example that you quoted earlier. There is no known efficient classical algorithm that can do the factoring efficiently. So quantum can do that efficiently. By efficiently, it means in polynomial time, a technical jargon there, but nonetheless, think of it as a finite time. It can do it in some reasonable finite time. So similarly, there are a few other results that shows that there is something fundamentally different. There is something unique that it brings to the table that the classical cannot do it as a matter of principle. You cannot do it, right? So you can even think of it as a complexity argument. So it cannot solve certain things efficiently that quantum can. So for example, if you want to simulate a molecule, uh, a reasonable size molecule, you cannot do that classically, because if you want to do that simulation correctly, you have exponential state space to track. And by the time your memory explodes, you just cannot do it practically. So you will have to cut down on it. Another classical example is, say, drug. Recently in the pandemic, say, if you want to find a new drug, and you have a new virus like the corona thing that we ran into through this year, the challenge these days is, how do I identify that molecule that will go stick onto that virus and not the others, so that there are no side effects and other things? In order for us to do that, you should be able to simulate this. And we cannot simulate this efficiently using the classical hardware. And therefore, you have to rely on heuristics, and after which you have to actually do clinical trials to validate things, build those and things. And that's where I think quantum provides a unique value proposition. In terms of its potential impact, remember how GPUs impacted in the last decade. The emergence of GPU brought in AI in a big way. AI was in a slumber for a while, but with the GPUs coming in the last 10, 15 years in particular, what we have seen is the revolution that it caused is because of that capability to do certain processing more efficiently, transformed the whole landscape of how we do things. We see quantum has similar capabilities. In fact, I see personally as it's a GPU with steroids in a more computational sense, and it can do a lot more things efficiently on certain kind of problems. As I described, certain things it can do well. And so it opens up new avenues, and it's an expanding avenue with active areas of research going on with new problems being studied.
Shesha, may I ask this? So there are two parts to this. One is problems that cannot be solved with current approach, the principle, and the second category, problems that can be solved faster by using quantum computing. Can you give an example, like one example for each?
So one was that molecular simulation that you cannot solve, right?
Okay.
That you cannot do because just a exponential, the state space argument, it just grows exponentially. You just cannot do it efficiently. If you want to do it accurately, you can do only approximations and heuristics. So that's one example where you cannot do things. The other thing where it can do better or differently is think of quantum is fundamentally random, right? In the sense, if you want to see probabilistic, you can do, say, random number generation more efficiently. I mean, it's something very fundamental, unique to it. So can we do a better random number generation using quantum? It's a very simple idea, right? There are a lot of work that is already there. It's not something that is earth-shattering in terms of concept. But as a simple example, even with the random number generators that we have classically is not super bad. It's just that now you have something that is at a very fundamental level random. You can leverage something fundamentally random from quantum physics to leverage and do something better. So then the question is, can you provide a better result? And that can have consequence into different applications and different domains, something as simple as that. Or alternatively, little bit more complicated ones are, you can have heuristics in quantum too. It's not that it's going to solve exactly everything. I mean, you can have heuristic algorithms much like the way we have heuristic algorithms in classical. So can we do, say, prediction better? Because I have this exponential state space, somehow I encode my information in this complex exponential state space. Can a quantum algorithm explore the exponential state space in a different way and do a prediction better in the AI space, for example? So that's a quality of results argument. That's not a runtime argument here.
What is one example that most, like a common person would know, like a successful example in quantum computing?
I wouldn't say successful per se, because it's not product yet. It's in development. Popular ones are the ones that are more popularly known is in the space of healthcare, and the drug that I described, because That impacts everybody. You don't need to be an engineer to talk about drugs, right? If I talk about AI, ML, and prediction and such, you need to have some relative background. So, in a broader sense, healthcare problems in healthcare and life sciences are the ones that are probably more interesting for wider audience, given that it impacts every person directly in a more direct way.
So the accelerated pace of developing these vaccines wouldn't have been possible without quantum computing.
No, we don't have quantum computing at scale right now for us to use and solve that problem. Had it been there, it would have helped significantly. As you know, through last year, many supercomputers were used to do a lot of simulations to do drug discovery. As part of that, even in IBM Summit, which is the biggest supercomputer we have, was used for some of those simulations. So, but then there are fundamental limitations to classical compute. And that's what I mean. If we had quantum computer at scale and was reasonably good, which currently it is not, it would have helped quite a bit in that journey.
I understand. So quantum computing can be used to play better chess compared to supercomputer?
I think AlphaGo has done a pretty good job already, right, in terms of doing some of those things efficiently. So I think the other one, the multi-dimension thing, which is more harder game, I guess. So I think the challenge has moved to a different game. Chess was the go-to thing in 90s and 2000s. Yeah. Now it's the other game, which has become more harder to solve. So then maybe we want to see whether can it solve that problem better.
We'll talk about that soon. So extending this conversation, Professor Anil, so quantum computing cannot solve the simplest problems, the most obvious problems like 2 + 2 is 4, right? And Shesha has given some examples of the predictive analysis that it can do, the projections that it can do. So what is your opinion on this? What do you think is the ideal model to apply quantum computing for experiments and for the industry?
We use the words quantum computing very generally. I like to think of them more as application-specific quantum computers today. There are different types of hardware. What Shesha is talking about is one type of hardware that IBM has. There are other types of hardware that other companies have made, for example, Honeywell. And what you would see is that they each have their own benefits. So if you look at a particular kind of hardware, you might be able to solve a problem on that hardware faster or better than if you tried it on either a classical computer or on a competing quantum hardware. So in that sense, I think one has to be very application specific. There are some problems that are of immense interest to industry. I know Airbus has a challenge out on its 3D bin packing problem. How do you fill a cargo airplane with crates of different sizes? And that's a problem that people are trying to solve on a quantum computer. We can do it, a 2D bin packing problem, relatively easily on a quantum computer, but 3D is still needs some more work, right? So there are the other example is a routing problem. You have a limited shortage of vaccines. How do you optimize it? How do you send it? Where do you do all that? Mm-hmm. Those are all fall under these class of problems called NP-hard problems. And you could pick any NP-hard problem and start asking the question, can you build an algorithm for a quantum computer that can do that better than a classical computer? Now, again, one has to be cautious when you say better, because if you pick a very small problem, then I can do it on my calculator. Yeah. Right. So the problem has to have sufficient complexity that you start hitting the limits of what is possible on a classical computer. And that's where you reach these holy grail types of quantum supremacy, where you are showing that you can demonstrate, simply do something on a quantum computer that you cannot do on today's best classical computers. And I think there have been some early demonstrations of that from Google and from the Chinese. Mm-hmm. They haven't solved any practical problem yet, but I think the practical problems are maybe 2-3 years away. And so right now we are in this phase of ramp up where we think that, if we start working hard on training ourselves, we will be able to have access to the kind of hardware we need to solve problems of relevance to a relevant scale to industry.
All right, I understand. So Let me start a parallel thread here and bring in immersive technologies from my perspective and Raj's perspective. So, like I defined earlier, immersion is the need to be completely involved in a task. Traditionally, immersion was delivered by bringing people to specialized environments, specialized built places. Like you come to an office to work, you come to a factory to work on the manufacturing line. You come to a convention center to experience an event or a conference or network. Now, since the onset of the global pandemic, it's become obvious, but I'm in a situation where I told you so since the last 5 years, where this immersion needs to be delivered remotely. And by delivering immersion, we mean you have to make the experience as realistic, engaging, and satisfying on all our devices. Yeah. And the best immersive experiences today are made with augmented reality, where you project digital information on top of an object or a person. Instagram facial filters are augmented reality. Step-by-step instructions on a machine is augmented reality. Virtual reality, where you're making a digital copy of a physical person, object, or an environment so that people can experience in a virtual world with different rules of physics and learn things. Third is mixed reality, where you take this digital copy and place it in a physical environment to be able to visualize. So I want to buy a car. I can't go to a showroom. I can download an application of the car, place it in life size in my garage, and see and take a purchase decision. So that's mixed reality. Now, it is never one thing, like Anil just pointed out. It is a combination of technologies that deliver both complementary and supplementary technologies that deliver immersion. Now, immersive technologies, mainly referred to as AR, augmented reality, started emerging in early 2010, 11. In 2014 was when Apple and companies like PTC have acquired AR engines from some startups and gotten into the space. Today in 2020, 21, the products are reliable, credible, and established and have delivered enough value across applications. The top industries, I would say, are retail, manufacturing, and now more and more healthcare. Yeah, because healthcare, especially, let me explain with an example. New vaccines, new products are coming every other week, and the ability to train the employees on manufacturing these new products typically is done through classroom training. Experts coming into space and doing it is not sustainable anymore. Augmented reality procedures give step-by-step guidance in 3D in a physical environment, sort of telling them exactly what to do in a real space, eliminating the risk and improving productivity in these environments. So that's what immersive technology is. It covers augmented reality, virtual reality, and IoT, of course. IoT is an integral part of immersive technology because it basically ensures that machines talk to you in these immersive experiences by giving their data and their statuses through dashboards. Raj, you may have a few comments to add, especially from the IoT perspective.
I think you gave the overview pretty well, Vishal. I think majorly immersive technologies are to make sure that humans learn better, experience better, and visualize things so that they understand better, right? So it's used in training, servicing, changeover procedures within manufacturing, pharma scenarios, etc., but also to operate very complex equipment. That's where immersive technology, augmented reality comes into play, where people standing in front of a complex machine, no matter how many paper manuals they've read in the past, when they are told exactly what to do with augmented instructions in front of a machine, that helps them understand that much faster. The cognitive dissonance, which is there of reading paper and then relating that to what they see in front of them, is completely eliminated. So they see the machine and they know exactly what to do with it.
Yeah.
Now, how does the backhaul? Obviously, 5G and communication technology improvement is to help the fact that data needs to be rendered at a rapid pace. But quantum computing comes in right there. Exponential improvements in volumes of data and the way data can be presented, at the speed of thought. That is what this can bring, and how it augments whatever AR experiences can be generated. And on the IoT side, which Vishal mentioned is a complement of AR, IoT side as well, when machines, connected products, for example, are out in the field and they need to be communicating to the central platform or do edge computations with large amounts of data, there itself, they can, with quantum computing, there can be leaps in the processing power, and also validation and verification of those machines when they need to be authenticated to come into the network, and therein comes the security, quantum cryptography, and all of that. I'm a novice, but I've read of all these terms as well. So all of these play in scenarios like that. So tremendous boost, like I said, various different technologies, each of them advancing in their own spheres, actually synergize together to make sure that the end customer experience is significantly enhanced with all of this. That's my perspective.
I agree. So that the end customer can focus and be immersed in what they're doing, rather than trying to figure out, the steps or refer to the procedure, etc. Everything is there in one view, right? There's a relevant question, Raj, from Syed Anwarullah. I can't see the full name, sorry, in Zoom. Can you give some interesting use cases where, in PTC, of course, that combines AR with IoT?
Sure. All right. Combining AR with IoT. You imagine you want to service a machine. So there's a service technician on the factory shop floor that goes in front of a complex machine. Let's say it's the example I can think of is an air and gas handling equipment, a large compressor in front of somebody. Now, that machine is actually connected to the IoT platform, where the different parameters, the different vital statistics of it is being checked or monitored. And with the power of predictive maintenance, you can actually look at which of those factors going below, which of those parameters going below a certain threshold or above a certain threshold, as the case may be, is going to eventually cause a failure sometime in the future. Now, therefore, there can be an alert sent out when the person is going in front of that machine with a HoloLens or a RealWear device worn. Now, let's assume it failed. Okay, so this is the alerts that he can see when you look at the machine. That's step one. A step further is, let's assume that's failed because of a certain factor. Now, he has to fix that equipment in front of him. Now, he doesn't know how to do it in general, or he has to go searching for his manual. Now, the customer care department of that machine can actually render an experience for him to look at that machine in front of him and tell him which knob to turn or what bolt to open up, which section of that machine to open up, and what to fix. It could be a very simple fix, really. A majority of fixes are very simple, just that people don't venture out to do it because they're scared of damaging the machine. So if he's told with instructions that this is what to do, then he can get that information right there. He can fix it himself. That's called customer self-service. So the power of IoT and AR combined together is tremendous. Physical into digital conversion is what IoT does. Digital into physical conversion is what AR does. So very complementary as technologies.
Thanks for that, Raj. So basically, IoT provides the digital information in the augmented reality visualization, right? And like you said, once the alert pops up, I'm walking through the factory, alert pops up, I click on that alert, it'll give me the step-by-step procedure to troubleshoot in augmented reality, which is foolproof. Beyond that, if I'm still not able to solve the problem, then I do a remote assistance call where the expert can log in from home and draw in my environment, because there's AR, you can detect the environment. I can doodle in it and show what to do exactly. So, 99% of problems are solved immediately on the job using the combination of AR and IoT. Awesome. I hope that gives you reasonable insight into what this field is: immersive technologies, AR, IoT, etc. Shesha and Anil had described quantum computing as well and their experience with it. Let's talk about what are the challenges in this field. Who would like to take it on? Anil, maybe, or Shesha, both of you. What are the challenges that you see on day-to-day basis? Because you're in the core of the emerging phase of the field, right? There's a lot of excitement, but what do you need next?
I think what would really help is if somebody cracks a difficult problem, right? Proof of principle. I think the first time someone does that, and I think we are getting very close to that point, the tipping point where we'll suddenly start seeing a flood of applications.
Yeah.
So that I think we are maybe about a year, 2 years away from. So while we are preparing for that tipping point, it's almost self-prophecy that we will reach that point because there's enough money and enough people looking at the problem. Now it's a question of, are we ready? Are we going to be ready when that tipping point comes to throw our forces behind it? We don't want to be caught sleeping. So in some sense, there has to be self-belief also, right? That it is going to come and then we are ready to grab the opportunity. Now, it would be, of course, fantastic if a startup from T-Hub were to tip the scale. Then that would just be extremely good for the entire ecosystem. But even if we are not ready to tip the scale, we should be ready to seize on every opportunity that is going to come our way soon thereafter. I just want to add that one of the things about IoT is the massive amounts of data it is going to generate.
Yes.
And that is where the quantum computing also comes in, because some of the algorithms have to do with how do you handle large data sets, and quantum machine learning is tackling ways and means of building better, more efficient neural networks to handle data analysis. So one could see a convergence of that happening also, and I think we need to be ready for that as soon as Shesha gives me a working quantum computer.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, so there's a lot of prediction apart from the data visualization, just detecting the environment and objects. The efficiency can, because of edge detection everywhere, whether it's a shadow or an edge or a color. I can't imagine the possibilities of applying quantum computing in AR.
Yeah,
of course. Towards the end, closing statements. I wanted to be a surprise. We'll discuss the integration of all these technologies. Yeah.
All right.
Shesha, so challenges, innovation, investment, not enough entrepreneurs. What are you facing? Penetrating this into the market.
So there are different layers. Hopefully, people will be able to follow that layered thing that I'm going to say. And there is also an orthogonal vector of global versus India. There is that differentiation too. So the layers part. One is building the hardware is darn hard. It's not a straightforward thing. So the progress that we have seen in the last few years is nothing short of a miracle in terms of the amount of scientific and engineering progress that has gone to build the hardware to the stage that it is in currently. It's not an easy thing. Just to give you a context, the superconducting qubit technology that IBM uses, for example, the qubits operate at about 10 to 15 millikelvins. That is something like 100 times colder than outer space.
Yeah.
That is near absolute zero, right? And you have to do that because the quantum effects are very, very, very quirky things. They are very sensitive to noise. Even a random photon coming through can upset it. And that's why you have to operate at that temperature, isolate it completely so that it can keep that quantum effect that much longer. And that's one of the reasons why we don't see any quantum effects in our real world. It dies around very, 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 very rapidly. In order to keep that alive, the technology that has gone behind to make that happen to the stage we are in is itself a fantastic achievement, in my opinion, the scientific and engineering. And the progress that it needs to make, as such, we don't see a significant roadblock, but it's not an easy path ahead either. It's a very hard thing to do. So first statement is on the hardware. That is the bedrock of everything that we can do, right? So it's not very easy, but we don't see a serious roadblock. There is a lot of challenges in terms of doing it, and there is a lot of scientific and engineering work that needs to go to make it happen, to push the technology further along. hardware. That was one. Next is for foreseeable future, till we have very high quality qubits that we have to deal with the noisy device that we currently have. So the challenge to the next layer is, how do I leverage the noisy hardware efficiently? It's in and of itself is not an easy problem. So that becomes, think of it as a compiler problem, right? So something at that level. Then comes the next layer. So is the application problem, right? So which is a good set of application that can leverage the hardware? So Anil talked about application specific quantum computing, right? In a way. So what are those applications that can benefit from this hardware, and what are those problems? And not all of them will work immediately. You can get some interesting results in quantum, even you may prove it. For example, the factoring algorithm that you are referring to, it's a mathematically proven thing. However, for us to implement that algorithm in quantum hardware today, we cannot do it because the quality of hardware is not there. It's probably going to take few years before we can get to that stage to be able to run that algorithm at scale. Today, they do factoring of 15 or something to show that it works, but we cannot do something at scale. So then the question is, what is that problem that can benefit the hardware as it evolves? And so is it going to be a drug kind of a simulation model, or is it going to be something else? That is one challenge. So that is on the technical side of things, right? On the other side is the business side, right? It comes to, so this is an evolving technology. We can certainly see it is fundamentally different and disruptive, potentially disruptive technology. And this is where the differentiation between global and Indian can potentially come in terms of investment. Because the startup ecosystem, given that this is T-Hub, maybe I'll refer to that. If you look at OECD countries, particularly US and Western Europe, there is a lot of investment and a lot of startups in this space. The startups are either targeted towards doing things efficiently in hardware, that is looking downwards, or looking at different applications, that is looking outwards towards the application, right? So those are the kind of companies that have come. More likely companies that are betting on things that are bio, like simulation, and those kind of things like protein and those drugs and some offshoot of those are more likely to see some value in the shorter term. Things that are betting on some advanced capabilities that requires much more efficient hardware may come as a second wave of development, or a second or a third wave downstream. But then there is investment happening on the startup. And if you see over the last 5 to 6 years, the investment has picked up quite a bit. It stands around just the startup from one data that I saw in 2020 is around 375 million or something, with 37 to 40 investments that have happened. It has dropped from the previous year, but that fluctuation will be there within the margin, but the general trend is moving upwards. That's in the global, mostly global. By global, it's mostly US, Canada, Western Europe. In Indian context, I think there are some startups that are come here, but we need to do a lot more. I think in the Indian context, there is this is a different kind of a deep tech in the sense that deep tech, there are different challenges. Like yours is a deep tech in a different way. It's a technology in terms of figuring out things in a different way. Here, it is a slightly different kind of a deep tech, if you see what I'm saying. But then there are opportunities too. So you need that. So that this is an India challenge in terms of bringing that. The other challenge is US in particular. The academia and industry are much more tight in terms of collaboration. At least my personal view. The research that happens in academia and the funding from the industry into the academia, then researching on problems that academia, there is a lot more dynamism there. I think that will help a lot in this particular space specifically, given the skill set that you need, the specialized skills that you need, that will not generally be available in industry. broadly. You need to leverage academia for that kind of skills, but that dynamism becomes very, very important. And I think that's something that we could do more on, that building that dynamism that is available, say, in the US context. It's more natural there. It just happens seamlessly. So here, that's another challenge I see. And generally, the funding within the academia also is another thing.
Yes, Shesha. I'm glad you brought that up because our company, Wowson, so a lot of our R&D is funded by winning grants in the US and the UK. And I love that ecosystem because grant insists that you use academic partnerships. We have professors and talent from the university investing their time and effort in creating products. I heard from T-Hub, the system exists, but most of us are not aware. I think T-Hub should bring us all the competitions or the mediums that are available by the state and the central government and help us with these. I see you're already collaborating with Anil, and working on projects. The main thing in this is funding. Yeah, whether it's a grant funding for R&D or investor funding, it is apparent that our future will be better by implementing these technologies. So talking about the future, let me describe the ideal future with immersive technologies in our lives. So today, we are constantly challenged with the choice of whether to have a real interaction or a digital interaction. We have our phones in our hand. Half the time when we talk to each other, we're looking at the phone. So a world with complete implementation of immersive technologies will merge both these realities, the physical and the digital. All the information I want is projected in context of the physical environment. If I'm looking at a person's face, their Facebook profile and the various variables that I need are projected in my vision. Yeah. When I'm talking to a machine and I'm operating my microwave, I want the instructions to be projected based on the time of the day, what I'm cooking, so that I can use my mind for bigger, better things rather than the menial tasks. Yeah. There are several projections by Microsoft. There's an episode in Black Mirror by Netflix where they're wearing contact lenses. Basically, the headsets have become so small that your entire life is projected in front of you. Yeah. So that is the ideal vision for the future. It is already possible today with SDKs by companies like PTC. They have the world's highest penetrated AR SDK called Vuforia. You can install Vuforia in any mobile app and deliver all these experiences. Yeah, object scanning, ground scanning, and the entire environment scanning. And after today's meeting, we will push PTC to include quantum computing to enhance the performance even better. I'm looking forward to that. So, Anil or Sesha, what is your ideal vision? Very quickly in 30 seconds, what does the life of quantum computing feel like? Is it even possible to define today? Anil, either of you, I'm sorry, Sesha, Anil, since you guys work together, you must have had these conversations.
So, quantum computing, unfortunately, is very nerdy. you guys can give reference to some nice Netflix documents and say this is what it looks like. I unfortunately cannot find that kind of an explanation other than some documentary or something.
So can
but
quantum computing provide the answer to the meaning of life?
So then it goes into philosophy, right? That also. But joke aside, I think in the context of innovation, let me restrict myself to that space at least in terms of, and also let's say within the space of the area that you are interested in, AR and augmented reality and the other aspect. If you want to look at at least this is my opinion. I'm no expert in that space. My expertise is more on the hardware side. So in any case, the application, there is a world of application as I see it. I mean, the way I can see, this can pretty much involve all sorts of technology in the backend. While the interfacing could be visual, IoT, whatever, that is just a front-end interfacing part. Yeah. But based on the problem statement at hand, it can involve all sorts of computation in the backend, which then comes to the question. So, for example, it could be machine learning in the backend to do prediction. or it could be data processing, as Anil mentioned before. If you are in the IoT context, you have the data to deal with, and you have to respond in near real time based on the application or prediction. So the other example that you cited. So this, so I can sort of see the whole lot of applications is part of this AR VR, because it is just a front ending of it, but the real solution happens in cloud in the back end, where the problem is crunched out, right? Ultimately, you have to crunch the problem out. And that problem is very hard problem, or it's going to be very difficult to solve in a real time sense. So if you look at the compute the quantum as it exists today will not be available in a mobile phone and laptop anytime soon. It's going to be deployed in cloud, right? And it's going to be an application that's running on the cloud or hardware available on the cloud. Then I can see a whole host of problems that, say, augmented reality can go after. In the back end, say, it requires a machine learning or a prediction or a data processing in IoT and all these things. Then there is a possibility of quantum providing you that boost to do that crunching, number crunching that you need to do, which is not an easy thing. It looks simple enough from a distance, but all the data set and simple things like edge detection involves all sorts of metrics, inversion, and whatnot. Those are all hard things to do if you want to do it non-heuristically or improve the quality of that thing. Then you would have to have some sort of a booster in the hardware to make that happen. You can't just do everything in software and hope that it will work exactly. So that's where I feel, AR as a field, since the context is AR, the whole host of optimization, prediction, machine learning, simulation, all sorts of things can get tagged in because you, based on a particular use case, you'll be leveraging different aspects of this and solving it. And that's where quantum can play a role.
Of course, Shesha. So simply put, you're saying, Vishal, your vision cannot be achieved without my quantum computing backend, or best achieved with my quantum computing backend. Yeah, awesome.
Or at least start thinking about it now, because I think given the evolution, it's going to depending on a particular use case, it can change. As I said, it's likely to come through waves of application, as was mentioned. So you would want to start thinking about it now, and if there is any innovative things, maybe there are possibilities for startups in that space too.
I understand. I look forward to that as well, to achieving vision through collaboration. Awesome. So it's time for Q&A. I do have a couple of questions. If people have any thoughts, please put it on the Q&A panel so that we can address it to you. While we address your questions, we also wanted to give our expert advice very quickly to investors, entrepreneurs, and businesses. Let me do that from an immersive technology perspective to start with. Investors, you don't need better evidence or proof because the big five are invested into augmented reality, into immersive tech. There's a scope for building a bunch of enhanced products based on this already proven technologies, and enhanced products can raise investments and grow in value 100-fold. There are a bunch of startups in the space globally. It's called Immersive Sector in UK and EU. In the US, it falls under augmented reality or mixed reality. Microsoft uses the term mixed reality, but all of them pretty much the same. I prefer to use immersive tech because it's the broadest umbrella term that covers AR, VR, MR, and a bunch of deep learning AI as well. Entrepreneurs, you have the platforms ready to build your products. And I think you do in the case of quantum computing as well. I'll leave it to Shesha to describe how you can create products using quantum computing. And businesses, it's high time that you take the risk and the responsibility and have the guts to create pilots using these technologies because they have immense value to deliver to you. If you do need a pilot, but I would reckon you jump straight into it, decide on a platform and create experiences that will basically enrich your daily essential business tasks with immersion. And basically, if people are better focused on their tasks, you're going to have productivity improvements, and your world will be better and more efficient. Shesha, from a quantum computing perspective.
So I will make the case that quantum computing, everybody should be invested in that technology because it is a fundamentally new model of compute, but more importantly, the kind of problems it can potentially solve. from drug discovery thing that I explained to say designing better batteries, to say doing fertilizers or changing the process of how fertilizers are generated, or logistics that Anil talked about. All these, the first few ones are particularly impact the society significantly and the environment significantly, potentially. If you had much efficient batteries, it can impact the environment quite a bit, um, and reduce the dependency on hydrocarbon to a large extent if that happens. Or fertilizers, for example, if you can do much more energy efficient way of doing it, its impact on the environment is quite significant. So the technology has the scope of impacting societies and countries at large. And the kind of problems it can tackle has a significant impact. So I think as a technology, everybody should be invested in that technology and its success because of its potential impact going ahead. And this technology will be an important tool to solve some of these world's most hard problems that we are facing, global warming and such, can potentially be addressed by some of these technological things. It can be used as a tool to address some of those things. So I think personally, everyone should be invested in the success of this technology. Secondly, in Indian context, there is it's still evolving. The technology is still evolving. So there is also a lot of opportunity if there is for innovation.
Sure.
And it is a greenfield at this time in terms of innovation. And so in terms of entrepreneurs, there should be that zeal to go into a greenfield to see and explore. And the technology, IBM, I can speak for IBM, we have published roadmaps, etc. So things are, at least the vision statement and where we are going is clear. And at the government level, everybody is, all major countries have invested billions of dollars or still investing in billions of dollars for good reasons for this technology. So across the board, the government, venture capital, and also in the personal as an investment into this technology, I think there is a broader understanding or clarity there. And there is opportunity to go after here because it's an open green field. And I think people should leverage this.
Thank you, Shesha. In the interest of time, last 2 minutes, we'll try and quickly answer some of the questions. So I have questions about immersive technology in education and prop tech. So education, now the lessons have to be delivered remotely, people sitting at home. Books are hardly immersive. So an AR experience versus a book is 100 times more immersive. Learning is faster, retention is better, and your student or your children can focus on implementation rather than the learning part. So consider immersion as a parallel medium. You have traditional medium of text, photo, and videos. You have immersive experiences, which is 3D, AR, VR. And immersive experiences are much more enhanced and deliver better productivity and better learning than traditional mediums. The next question is about prop tech. So in prop tech as well, AR, VR will help visualization of property, either sitting at home or on the property itself. You can go to an empty land and see a 3D lifestyle visualization of the building. And you can add, I see you asked Kiran Kumar about blockchain. So blockchain will introduce smart contracts into these experiences. It's a parallel topic, but of course, AR, VR and blockchain can work together to ensure better security and better transactions and better tracking of your property transactions. You can let go of the millions of papers that you hold today. There's no other industry I've seen still relying so much on paper as property technology. I hope you answered the questions. That's all the time we have. Thank you very much, the panelists and the audiences. We'll try our best. You can basically contact THub through their official channels on social media, and we will respond to some of your queries and questions. You may contact us directly as well, request for meetings if you want to continue any of your conversations further, if you want to work with IBM and use their SDKs for developing quantum, developing products based on quantum technology. If you'd like to work on PTC's engines, and if you'd like to contact me regarding several applications of immersive technologies in your specific fields, we're happy to connect with you. Thank you very much and have a great day.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you so very much for accepting our request and be such a wonderful panel. Thank you so much, and thanks Vishal for moderating such a wonderful session. And it's a pleasure to have you all. And to all the attendees, thank you so much for joining, registering this for this session. We would appreciate to see your feedback, your honest feedback. It will appear on your screen as soon as the session ends. Thank you so much. We definitely look forward to many more such sessions. Thank you.